quest is different for all of us.
Right.
There's really no destination, but the journey is different for all of us and what our passions and things that we pursue. But I think the essence of it is like find peace in this quest, because life will take you all over the place. But if you can find that peace in here, then you'll be good to go.
Well, hello, everybody. Dr. Ron Oberstein, president of Life Chiropractic College West, and welcome to another edition of our Life by Life West. Of course, joined on these podcasts with my partner in life and health and everything else in between, Dr. Mary. Great to see you.
You too.
Even though you're just probably in the next room, but it's still good to see you because I haven't seen you much today. And we've got a wonderful guest with us today. We've got I guess I could say this, Mary, two of my favorite 4 women on the planet. My wife, of course, Mary, and then Morgan Oberstein, our daughter, our second daughter. And Morgan, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. You have been the most elusive one. We thought we had a hard time getting Sydney, and we couldn't get Sydney nailed down. Of course, Lauren is like, okay, let's just get it scheduled. And then with you, man, I tell you, it's been like, Sharon got me off a call, but that's my executive assistant, got me off a call earlier to say, you got to just get on that call, because to get Morgan, she was just so excited because she's been trying to get you on the show for forever. So welcome.
Thanks. I live life on my own timeline.
We've known that since you were born, girl.
I was going to say from day one, Morgan, from day one.
Absolutely. But let me just share with the audience a little bit about Dr. Morgan. So Dr. Morgan, of course, she grew up as a ChiroKid, and she went to UCLA, and then she graduated from Life West in 2015, stayed in the area, practiced in the town next to where Life West is, called Union City, had a very successful practice there for 5 years. And then in 2020, she moved to Phoenix and she moved in June, I believe, of 2020. And July of 2020, she opened a practice up. And then in November of 2020, all within this time period, she gave birth to her first child, and a beautiful, beautiful girl, Brooklyn. And since then, she's just been practicing, I guess, and raising, co-parenting and working. One of her passions is lacrosse, and so she's always kept her feet in lacrosse. I remember you used to coach lacrosse when you graduated from Life West, and she's working for a huge lacrosse club or a group, and also is part of a chapter coordinator for a nonprofit called Hands for Life that's been in our family for many years. So, wow, that was a mouthful. So anyways, I got you introduced, and gosh, Morgan, it is really good to see you. It is.
You too.
Well, it's interesting because normally when we FaceTime, we see a lot of Brooklyn. So to have you uninterrupted without Brooklyn yelling, "Hi, Grandma! Hi, Papa!" Kind of nice.
It's very nice. It's nice. I want to jump in, but Mary, I'll let you ask the first questions if you want.
Okay. It was interesting when we did this with Sydney. It was great because I learned a lot. So I'm looking forward to you, because we think as parents, we know everything. And I'm sure we're going to be pleasantly surprised with a lot of your answers. So I just want to jump right in and kind of talk about what your life, I know that life happens in seasons, and I want to jump in and say what does your life look like right now? And you could talk about co-parenting, you could talk about the practice and all the things you do. So what's it look like right now?
My life, this is definitely a season for me of being present and slowing down a little bit. Since I moved to Phoenix, I had so many different life transitions that happened all at once. And so it has really taught me to settle into this season now of doing things on my own timeline and doing things. It's funny when you say my introduction, it does sound like a lot, and sometimes it does feel like I have a lot on my plate, but my actual day-to-day life and how I approach the things that I do, I actually feel like I have a lot of space and I have a lot of time. And I've created that by kind of stepping off of the hamster wheel, if you will, of like have to do and achieve and look at what I can do, and the glorification of the busy life. Because I did live that way at some point prior to a kid when I was in the Bay Area, and I just was like hustling and grinding and growing a practice, and that was my life. And so now my life looks a lot different as I've kind of like stepped off of that into a different path of really like kind of digging into who I am and creating the space and time, allowing myself to have that space and time to do all of these different things that I really love to do.
Right. And, you said something where you said, do it on your time. And, when you got a 2-year-old or a 2.5-year-old, it's pretty hard to do things on your own timeline. At least I can only speak for your mom and I with you guys, how does that work? Or is Brooklyn's timeline your timeline? I really don't know.
Probably a little bit of both. Again, my like when we actually look at the time that I have in a day or in a week, it fluctuates throughout my week because I co-parent with Brooklyn's dad. So she'll be with him a couple days a week, and then she's with me the rest of the time. And so those days look really different, like a day like today where she's with her dad and I'm able to schedule this interview. I went to Costco today. I was online this morning getting stuff done. So that will look a lot different than tomorrow when she's with me and we might just be hanging out at a park and playing on the floor for hours. So my day-to-day looks a lot different depending on what's going on.
So Morgan, would you say that the shift happened? Because you said like at one point you were like, and I remember this, when you were doing a lot, you were coaching and you were teaching and you were doing all this stuff. Was it when Brooklyn was born? Like, was that when the shift happened? Was it like, when did you make the shift?
I don't know if I made the shift or like life made the shift for me. Because again, I was living that life of just like head down, kind of like grinding, which is interesting. Like, I feel like I think back to myself when I was in chiropractic school and again, you two being mentors, but also all the chiropractors that would come in and speak. We were always listening to chiropractors talking about like this success and this, look at what you can do and look how many people you can serve, or look at how many people I can serve. And so it kind of created that culture for me of like, okay, how can I be the best chiropractor? How can I do this the best way? And I've always liked to do things my way. But still, I was kind of living in that life or that world of like, hit the ground running, nose down, let's go, let's hustle, let's grind. And it served a purpose for me. And I needed that in my life at that time. And then again, life 2020 happened, like, which I think was a shift for everybody, but especially for me, it's like I was pregnant, I had my daughter, and then soon after that, got a divorce from Brooklyn's dad. And so my whole life, really, I feel like it was actually such divine timing of me kind of feeling like, oh my gosh, okay, I had built this life of everything I had pictured and imagined. And then it all just kind of like, in a matter of however much time, like just kind of like crumbled to the ground. And although that was so hard and like a dark period of my life of just kind of feeling like, I'm sure any woman can relate just after having a baby of feeling like, who am I? But it really was this kind of like time to be like, oh no, like, who am I? And how am I going to live this life? And what does my life look like? Not dependent on anybody else, but what does this actually look like for me? And having a daughter actually sparked that in me of like, I love her and she's my whole world, but also I have to remind myself, no, I'm my whole world. Yeah. And I want her to be her whole world. And so it's really like, although of course, as a parent, like you do so much for your kids, I'm sure, as you guys know. But I really like have stepped into modeling, no, this is my life. So like to answer your question, Dad, like I do live on my timeline and she's along for the ride with me. Like she's along for the ride with me. And she will develop her own, and honoring that she will develop her own timeline when it comes.
Yeah. And Morgan, when you went through all those changes, because you said they hit you at all at one time, and plus the world was in a major correction, right? A major adaptation. And I think we'll look back at that time in the world to see that, that it was truly about adapting. What was your anchor? Like, I'm just curious, because I've never asked you this. How did you navigate all that? I was able to watch you and I was able to talk with you on the phone, and we could come out to Phoenix and see you, but, never really asked the questions like, what was it? Because people don't have to have a baby and go through a separation and start a practice and do all that. That could be other things in their life. They can lose a family member. They can, whatever it might be. What were some of the key things that you navigated that with?
My initial answer of like thinking of what is an anchor, like I think we think of an anchor as like something external to ourselves that we can hold on to and ground us, which is important in different seasons of life. But for me, I really think of like, no, it was actually realizing that this, like that the anchor is me, that this is who I am with. Like, this is even just like getting to know myself and like, that's my initial answer. But then I also do remember, Dad, I had a conversation with you at some point when I was kind of going through all of this stuff. And you had told me, take out a piece of paper and like write down a kind of like a mission statement, or write down like what you want to keep in the forefront of all of these things that you're kind of dealing with, and being in a new city and going through all of this kind of stuff. And I remember I still have the post-it of like, I wrote down, and it was for myself and for Brooklyn, and it was love, acceptance, and freedom. And those were like the three things that I clung to of like, and I still have the post-it note in my closet that I can look at to know like, okay, everything, like keeping that at the forefront when it's easy to choose other things, to choose love and to choose acceptance and to choose freedom too.
Yeah. Wow.
Well, and Morgan, and during that time, like the one thing, and you just said it, was like, it was you. Like there's no answers outside of you. It was you. And the one thing that I noticed too with that was like, yes, you directly went inside, even to the point where you were like, you started making promises to yourself. Do you remember that? Radical honesty.
Yeah.
Like you didn't look outside and say, from now on, I'm not going to let other people. It was like, no, from now on, I promise myself to be radically honest. Like everything was inward, which,
yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Like that was my lesson. And it was like, wow, it wasn't like you went outside to get the answers. You went deep inside. And when you did you've almost like rebuilt your life, I guess, right? Maybe you can speak to this too. Like, I feel like, and you've said this before, that you intentionally built your life. Like, what does that mean to you to do it intentionally?
To me, I feel like even just to wake up every day and actually like be yourself and live your truth and speak your truth, you have to be intentional with that. Because I even will find myself sometimes of when I fall kind of back into the like, oh, I should be maybe seeing more people, or maybe I should be doing this, or I think it's only natural sometimes to compare. Like we live in this world of kind of comparison, and are you as successful as the next person type of thing. And so I think it's easy that you can fall back into that. So it actually really takes intention to like wake up every single day and feel like, nope, this is my life. I'm going to do what is best for me. Like, if that means taking a couple hours to rest on the couch and do nothing, then that's what I'm going to do, because that's going to serve me. So it really, like, it has been intentional with, and I honestly feel like I'm at a space where like my life is reflective of who I am. Like even just talking about kind of being anchored within, like I don't know, maybe it was January of 2022. Like I rebranded my whole office. Yeah. And I looked, and I didn't do it externally. I don't even think I ran it by you guys of like, hey, what do you guys think about this name or this brand? It was something that I literally like, it was a span of maybe 3 nights when Brooklyn was asleep, and I would get on my computer and I was like, or I was on my phone, like writing down all these notes of like, what do I want? What do I want? What do I want this practice to be like? How can it reflect who I am? And so now my practice is called Home Within. Like literally that is the message of like that I am home. It doesn't matter what city I'm in. Yeah. It doesn't matter, like doesn't matter where I am, that this is my home. And to always honor that.
Yeah.
I love it. So Morgan, you were basically before, you described, obviously you don't have a traditional practice, right? And I think you have a traditional life because your traditional life is non-traditional. Everyone's lives are different, right? And everyone does different things. But you said it before, like you'd listen to people speak and you'd hear what they say about practicing and, A, B, C, D, or A plus B equals C, or that kind of stuff, or whatever it was. I'm sure you got great things out of it. But there's a lot of non-traditional, traditional traits of what you're doing right now, just because of the season and because of what you have happening. Can you talk about that?
Yeah. So right now, again, I love chiropractic, and I love chiropractic so much that I will never serve in a way that isn't congruent with who I am. And so what that means for me right now is, like, I have a practice and I love my practice, and I'm in there 8 to 10 hours a week. And that's it. Yeah. And it's just me. And my overhead is so low. And there's no stress. There's absolutely no stress. And I don't do any external marketing. And I just show up. I have a great website. People find me. I have referrals and word of mouth. But I just I literally just go in there and show up. And it's so simple and so basic, and it brings me so much joy. And it's so different. Like, again, if I would have thought when I was in Union City and like that practice was my life and that was my baby at the time, like, I don't think I even knew that this was an option of just creating, of having a practice serve in this season of life. That is how I show up in my practice. And it's beautiful and it's awesome. And I think it's a reminder too, like, I think I went through all of chiropractic school. I don't think I ever asked a woman chiropractor, like, so what is this like after you have a baby? And maybe, sometimes like yourself, sometimes there's chiropractic couples. And so it's kind of a little smoother transition if someone else is in there. But I just think that like you said, Dad, people go through different times in life. Of like, sometimes you might find yourself where your main role in life is being a caregiver to a family member. Or you might find yourself in a situation where you're in a new city and you don't have a practice started yet. You don't really know what to do. So I think that it's important to think that there are these kind of non-traditional situations where your life as a chiropractor may seem different than the regular, oh yeah, I've got this practice and I'm there Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday for however many hours, and this is what I do.
Yeah. And so I think a lot of that is, and Mary, I don't know if you agree with this or not, but I think a lot of it is that so many people get their identity tied into what they do instead of who they are. And, we can walk up to people and say, hey, well, oh, you're Morgan. Tell me about you. And they'll say, well, I'm a chiropractor and I do this and I da. Instead of like, well, no, who are you? That's what you do, right? And it sounds like, you're taking who you are as the validation points in your life right now, right? And that doesn't mean it's always, ice cream and cherries on top, right? Because it could get messy, but who you are, and you're taking that to your office, and that's just over here. And then I have my daughter over here, and then I have my other few businesses that I do over here. But the focal point, like you said, is Morgan.
Yeah.
Am I hearing that right? And
yeah.
And that being like that, I guess my question is, because you touched on it, how do you keep that balance? Because it is easy to get drawn into this external world, to get drawn into the practice, 4 people didn't come in, so I'm down, or I had 4 new ones today and now I'm real happy, and being at the effect of life on the outside instead of being at the effect on the inside.
Yeah, for me, it actually helps the fact that I have all of these different kind of like have my hand in all these little pots, which is funny because I think in chiropractic school, again, I grew up with the model of like 2 parents who were in a practice, which yes, you did some other things too, but it was like mostly you guys were in a practice. So when I thought of myself of, I'm becoming a chiropractor, I never would have pictured my life looking the way it does now. I always would have figured like, okay, I have an office and that's, I invested money to become this thing. And so that is what I have to do and only that, which is so not true. Like I love the fact that my life represents, yes, I love chiropractic and I do that. And I love lacrosse and coaching and empowering young women through sports. So I do that too. And I love being a mom, even though it's probably the hardest job out of every job in the world. But that's part of my life too. So it's even this idea of balance. Like I really don't think that we find balance. For me, I create it. Like I have to create the balance in my life. So I get to show up, for example, in my practice, it's just me. I call the shots. I'm the leader. I'm the entrepreneur. I can change my hours in tomorrow if I wanted to. And I could shut down if I wanted to too. I could take a month and go to Bozeman, Montana and completely just tell people I'll be back next month. So I get to call the shots in that, which is awesome. And then I can put a hat on of working at a lacrosse organization where I'm a team member, where I can show up and say, how can I best serve today? What do you need help with? I don't make the decisions. Somebody else up here, you make the decisions. This is your corporation, but how can I help in that way? And then as a mom too, we think we call the shots, but really not at all. I'm serving a different boss in that role. So I really feel like instead of like finding the balance in life, it's like, no, I create the balance in life of where can I even think too, like where I'm at in my life right now, I'm all about honoring myself and like, being very true to myself and how am I feeling and allow myself to have those feelings. And then, what I do almost every day for 50 minutes is I go to a workout class where they don't care if you're tired. Like I remember a workout instructor once was like, "Are you tired?" And I was thinking like, "Oh my gosh, yes, I'm tired." She was like, "Who cares? Who cares?" And it was, to me, I'm like, against every how I'm living my life right now, but it's exactly what I need for an hour every single day to go in there and like push my body to its max, and like I don't care if I'm tired. So it's to me that's like a representation of finding those areas of your life where you can show up and express yourself in a certain way, and then the more you get to know yourself, you'll find different avenues that you can show up and express yourself in a different way.
Yeah.
So Morgan, are you constantly checking in with yourself of like how often do you check in and go like, okay, does this feel right? Like you just said, like you could change your hours in the office, you could change your name, you could take on less hours for Hands for Life or lacrosse. Like, do you constantly check in of, does this feel good to me? Or is it like a monthly check-in? Like, how do you keep track of that?
I'm constantly checking in. I also have a relationship too with my own self of like, a lot of times my body will tell me things. So I will feel, I might go through something where I'm like, oh, like I don't get headaches and my head is hurting, or my body will tell me certain things. And I don't just think of that as, oh, wow, like I should go get adjusted or I need to do it. I actually like settle in of like, okay, wait, how is my life feeling right now? Are there changes? A lot of times things come up in our body for like as a catalyst for change. And it doesn't always have to be physical of like, oh, let me sleep a different way, but it can actually be like, okay, where in my life am I maybe a little bit out of alignment?
Yeah. It's I just wrote something down for me, and it's what I'm hearing. What's resonating for me is it's conscious living. And conscious living doesn't mean it has to be a certain way. It doesn't mean it has to have certain smells or it has to be all good or all bad. It's just being conscious. And isn't that what we teach? And like in chiropractic, it's about listen to your body, right? In chiropractic, we teach, just allow yourself to be, your body's a self-healing, self-regulating organism. Just allow it to do what it's designed to do, right? And it's almost like this, I guess, I don't know. I wrote it down for me, just conscious living, because it sounds like you're choosing what it is that you want, the best that you can. And I'm sure there's times you don't, because we're humans. We haven't evolved to the angelic state yet, but it just sounds like it's just so beautiful on that level of you. And even if it's ugly, at least it's being responsible. It's not being a victim. It's being a cause, and it's choosing what you want,
Yeah. And life teaches us that too. Like when I was just on a hike this morning, and my favorite hike is I walk up this little hill and there's a cactus, a huge, big saguaro cactus with a nest. And every spring an owl comes there to have her babies. And I used to walk by this same cactus 2 years ago, newly postpartum, when my life, in that really dark time, when my life just felt like, oh my goodness, what do I do? All of this kind of stuff. And I would walk by this owl sitting there, and I was reminded in life of like, that was her job. She had no other job in the whole world than to sit with those eggs or sit with those little babies in that nest. And she was 100% fulfilling what she needed to do, that owl. And it was a reminder to me of like, we think that I've got to do this and I've got to do this. How did this feel? And it's like, whoa. Like, what am I here to do right now in this present moment?
Yeah.
And it's crazy too. Like today I walked by that same owl and I stood there for 5 minutes just watching her. And the amount of people who walk by that cactus and don't even look up, they have no idea that they're walking by like a great horned owl or whatever kind of owl it is. And I just sit there like in awe of life and just how we always, if we stay true to ourselves, we always will end up where we need to be in that present moment.
Yeah.
Morgan, I know we're kind of wrapping up. I have a question for you. How would you define, like, when people say, do you have a successful practice? And I'm just because we're in chiropractic, I'm just hitting on the practice more than the life. How would you define that? Like what is a successful practice to you?
To me, it's a practice that feels good. Like as simple as, does it feel good? Like people will ask me, it's like I'll have friends or colleagues who will reach out saying like, how was everything? Or even checking in of like, okay, you're a mom and this and that, or daycare, all that you do. What does life look like? And when it comes to the new practice and success, to me, it's like, does it feel good? Do I show up there with joy? Is there ease? Is there flow? Like, does it, and again, not to say, of course I have days where I'm tired and I'm this and Brooklyn's coming with me and I know she's going to be running all over the place and it's chaos. And, it's not always just this like, oh, I'm just floating around and it's perfect. But at the core, it's like, does this feel good? Do I feel like me when I'm showing up here and serving these people? And like right now, to me, that's like a yes. And I also know that in life, like things will evolve and things will change. I think that's part of having a successful practice too, is having the freedom to, as you change as a human being, having your practice be able to change too and shift and be a reflection of who you are, not necessarily be like it's not the practice comes first and then you can mold to fit into it. But it's like, what if you put yourself first and then your practice shift and adapted how you could then show up in there and be true to yourself. Right. So to me, that's how I would define that, of like, it feels good. Feels like you.
It's great.
I'm inspired. I just want to share this with you, Morgan, because I don't know if I've even ever told you this, but Sydney doesn't have kids yet, but Morgan, Lauren had the first, she had our first grandchild, right, Braxton, and watching her parent, I saw so much of your mom, so much of Mary. And it was innately, it wasn't like, it was stuff that Mary, you did when she was like, 1 year old or 6 months old. And it was just incredible to kind of watch that. And I was taken back, like, wow, this stuff must have seeped in somewhere, that kind of thing. And then, watching, you with Brooklyn, same kind of thing, but it's how you do it, and it's not like the way Mary does it and Lauren doesn't do it. It's how you do it. And I just have to share with you that, it's very inspiring to be able to watch and be on the sidelines, as your mom and I say, because I think the greatest joy in our life right now is to be on the sidelines in the stands, watching our children and our grandchildren, and not being down there having to be hands-on and doing this, and really being just in the stands and just watching and seeing what all three of you are creating, differently. I know you're not on the phone every night sharing what's going on, but it's just so cool and it's just so inspiring because you've got a beautiful daughter and you've got a beautiful life and, and all this other stuff. It's who you are. And yet it's that reflection, and it's just amazing to see. So I'm sorry I divert a little bit, but I just wanted to share that, I haven't shared that with you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. We're at that time right now. I can start crying. Yeah. We're at that time right now. We're with all of our Life by Life West guests. We always ask them two questions when we start to close down. So we're going to do the same with you. You or me?
I'll start.
You always start, but you start.
I love going first. So Morgan, if you could, knowing what you know now of all your vast wisdom, if you could go back on day one of you starting at Life West and talk to Morgan Oberstein, what would you say to her now?
What advice would you give her?
What advice would you give her?
I would probably tell her that, like, one, yes, you're here to learn the things to become a great chiropractor, and that's important in how you serve other people. But I would also remind her that you're also here, like this is a season of your life, and you're here to learn about yourself and how you can take care of yourself during school. I don't think I had that reminder of, I was so like, okay, I'm powering through and getting through this schooling. So I would remind her that, like, yes, you're going to gain this knowledge to become an amazing chiropractor, but also like the true wisdom comes from knowing who you are and how you navigate through this school process, because that will stick with you for the rest of your life, and how you navigate beyond these walls.
Love it. So the question number 2 is just really kind of piggybacking off that. So now who you are right now, right, as Morgan Oberstein, and you're speaking to the Morgan Oberstein who just graduated, went through that process, looking to go into practice or whatever it is, what advice would you give her right now?
Okay, I'm going to answer this with like a little story. So it's the end of March right now, so I have lots and lots of basketball on the TV, right? Been watching lots of March Madness. And so I had a girls' basketball game on the other day, and Iowa was playing, and Caitlin Clark, who is arguably one of the best player in women's basketball right now, in college women's basketball. They were talking about, the announcers were talking about her, and that she, again, one of the best players in the world, and she works with a sports therapist, and they use this phrase of finding peace in the quest. And I heard that, and it was like, I had this visceral reaction of like, that's it. Like, that's it. That's what so again, to go back to your question of like this Morgan who's out of school, in practice, ready to go, I would just remind her, like, find peace in the quest of whatever that success is for you, whatever the quest, because the quest is different for all of us. There's really no destination, but the journey is different for all of us and what our passions and things that we pursue. But I think the most, like, the essence of it is like, find peace in this quest, because life will take you all over the place. But if you can find that peace in here, then you'll be good to go.
Yeah. Wow. Love it.
Boom.
Whew. Boy, did I learn a lot today. I tell you, I'm seriously, with you and Sid and with Lauren, it's kind of like, man, I think we need to be doing these just on a regular basis, like not even for our audience, just to kind of have this set up to do this. But Morgan, thank you. Thanks for taking the time and for making the time and creating the time, to be with us on this Life by Life West. It was really a pleasure just getting this uninterrupted time with you. Mary.
Yeah. Thanks, Morgan. Even though we missed that little face next to you.
I know.
I miss it.
Would have been a louder call if Brooklyn was here.
Yeah. And I think the audience needs to know this, that every morning I usually wake up and Mary's already on a call with you and Brooklyn, and and then she shows, oh, there's Papa, it's kind of thing. So it's so beautiful, and the technology to be able to keep us together, and we could be in 3 different cities or countries, anywhere in the world. It's just so cool. So, to our audience, thank you. Thanks for being with us, and thanks for coming back, and thanks for continually coming back and just sharing these Life by Life West. I guarantee you there's not one person on the planet who doesn't need to hear what Morgan said today, or be reminded of what Morgan said today. So we certainly appreciate you sharing these and spreading them. We've got messages from people just recently. I just got one just yesterday. Someone who just said, or Mary, you did too, right? Someone said, man, my God, this is incredible. And yeah, it's helping a lot of people, but it's also just spreading this word and letting people kind of experience themselves in the way that they need to. So thank you for coming back. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for, we drop these every 2 weeks. The opposite 2 weeks, we put a life leadership line out. And we just appreciate you. And until we come back at you, just keep remembering that your home within, as Morgan aptly calls her practice. It's you are the center of your universe and what's there. And also remember that you are much more powerful than you were ever led to believe. You are just an incredible human being, and that we hope that through these shows that you could just find more of yourself in that. So thanks again, Mary. I'll see you in just a minute. I'm going to buy some raw milk right now. I'm going to a farm to get some raw milk in Montana. Morgan, really, thanks. It was just great to have you.
It was fun to be here.
Yep.
Thanks, Morgan.
Love you. And
love you.
Everybody else from Dr. Morgan, Mary, myself, we bid you adieu, send lots of love, and just keep loving those people around you. See you later.